here for lunch. Just as a reminder too, if you're coming back, make sure that your camera, I think everybody's microphone and camera are off. If you have any questions from this next session, feel free to put it in the chat. And then when Professor Ty opens up for questions, I will go ahead and read them that way. We will go ahead and get started. Professor Nathan Ty, he's a assistant professor at the University of Nebraska at Kearney. I've taken many classes from him so far in my graduate program, so I'm familiar with Professor Ty. He does great work. His main focus is on American history, specifically transients, like in the Nebraska hobos and things like that. So it's a very interesting topic that I don't think is covered very often. So I'm sure he loves to talk about that. This program is going to be focusing on the introduction to web-based digital tools, and how do we, better, especially with the year that COVID was, looking at ways that we can get our exhibits out there to people that can't necessarily meet in person. So if Professor Ty is available, I will give the floor over to him.
Well, thank you, Micah. Can everybody hear me fine?
Yes, I can hear you. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Well, thank you all for, thank you to Audrey for inviting me, and thank you all for attending. And we're just going to have, a very good conversation this afternoon about some very straightforward methods to do digital history work, and kind of use different existing programs for your institutions, for your collections, and for your exhibits. And so this is going to be just kind of a broad overview. And so just to kind of give you a sense of what we're going to be doing today is, just beginning by having a conversation about the challenges and opportunities of digital history, particularly within, museums, historical societies, historic sites, and other types of settings. And what does that mean, as Micah alluded to, and we're all well aware, the challenges of COVID, and what that means for reaching the public, making collections and materials accessible, and really, ensuring continued relevancy and continued access to collections. And then my PowerPoint today is actually, fairly short. We're going to actually go through 3 programs that offer different types of resources, and of varying complexity and varying scale, which are easily implemented into institutions of all different sizes. So we're going to start talking about Clio, which I know some institutions in the state already use, Omeka, and then Scalar. And so we're going to spend the majority of our time kind of looking at example projects and things that other institutions, both in the state and outside the state, have used these specific programs for, how they've incorporated them into their programming, and how these specific programs, particularly, again, in the age of COVID, are kind of adapting to a different type of audience and a different type of museum goer. And then just, some closing thoughts on digital history museums, and then also to point you towards resources and folks within the state who can help develop these things, and including myself. So just to kind of talk about the beginning, this is again, you're all, certainly aware, digital accessibility is the norm. Now there is an expectation, for a social media presence. There is an expectation for some sort of digital presence, no matter the size of the institution or where you are located. This is kind of just, younger folks, different generations are expecting some sort of interface, some sort of connection, and some sort of accessibility digitally. And at a basic level, this can mean managing a Facebook page, having a social media platform, a Twitter feed where you're sharing images from the collection or advertising events. But there are other ways, particularly now, again, with COVID and limited accessibility, how to make use these digital tools to make your museum accessible, and the possibilities of expanded relevancy, engagement, and accessibility. Thinking about a lot of particularly historical societies in the state and a lot of local museums. This is the time when you could be highlighting your materials from the 1918, 1919 influenza pandemic, and looking at ways to rapidly respond to events or things. Not that you need to respond to certainly like every news story or something with kind of a local aspect, but there's a way to show again the continued relevancy, and social media and particularly these digital projects are one way that you can make these connections, put this material out in the community, and make these stories more widely heard. And also, as a matter of engagement and accessibility, if folks don't know that you're there, they don't know what you have, they would like to visit, but they are far away, or are unable to access your museum. These kinds of materials and resources can really aid with that. And the three programs that we're going to look at today, Clio, Scalar, and Omeka, can benefit an institution of any size, whether you are a house museum, whether you are a large state or regional repository, whether you are an art museum, whether you are a cultural heritage center, what have you. There are ways that you can benefit from having a digital presence, having exhibits available and things. But that doesn't mean that there's not challenges, right, that come with digital history. It's why digital history is daunting for a lot of folks. The technical challenges, the feeling that you need a computer science degree, a PhD in computer science, and you need to know a bunch of coding languages. But the need and the challenges are important to recognize. There is a digital divide, as many of you are certainly aware, between older museum goers, younger museum goers, those who have access to technology. And as I note here, this is particularly relevant in this state with limited rural broadband access. What do you do when you don't have a very strong internet connection? How do you still make these things accessible? How do you update? How do you have a web presence? And what do you do if you don't have the technical support? If you're learning these things on your own, kind of haphazardly, or just by trial and error, there are these challenges. There's also the longstanding issue of investments and community interest, which is why the three programs, again, that we're going to be looking at today are all based out of different universities and have longstanding financial commitments and other investments, and are relatively durable. You're not building something yourself. You're not in most of these programs, you don't have to host it on your own servers. You don't have to make that investment. And so if you build something, it will still be there in a couple of years. It might look a little dated. You might need to update it, but you would have that type of lasting kind of investment and maintenance taken care of. But then there's also the difficulty in maintaining community interest, as is with any exhibit or with any type of thing, of how do you keep it updated? How do you keep it relevant? The other challenge is, and particularly when you're putting things on the web, are copyright and other types of permission restrictions. If you are unaware of the restrictions, if the material was donated quite a long time ago and the paperwork is a little fuzzy, if copyright was not transferred along with the other material, there are challenges then. If you have diaries or photographs or audio or video, how do you do that? And the most common feature would be just to have a firm language about a takedown notice, but this can be a challenge if it's unclear what you can do with this material. And then finally, this is kind of returning to the community investment and interest is just long-term support for your project. It's really great when you build something, a digital history project, but then it disappears after a couple of years. The servers get wiped, things change, the software isn't available anymore. And so these types of challenges, again, which is why I'm pointing you to the specific programs we're looking at, just because they have some of that already built in to them. And these programs we're going to look at have offsite storage. They are hosting the material themselves in most cases. All of them have a mobile interface. So those who are attending the museum and have a smartphone on them can engage with the exhibits physically with the digital kind of version, or those who are far away can engage with it. And all are open source design, which means that you have access to the back end material. You can develop it as you see fit, that there are other programmers and others who are using the same program who are investing in and creating different types of plugins, different design features, and different things that can make these programs adaptable to, you know, the particulars of your institution or your museum. And all three of them are relatively easy to begin. We're kind of going to begin with the easier version, which is Clio, and then Omeka and Scalar, and there are tutorials and other resources, training sessions operated by the institutions that host these programs that can provide the training and the resources for those who really kind of want to, you know, dip their feet into what these are. So we're going to begin with Clio, which I know a number of different historic sites and different you know, historical societies in the state are using. And so I'm just going to give you an overview of the program, and then we're going to look at some of the finished products, particularly in the local area that are produced by institutions in the central Nebraska area and have been created by students in our program here at the University of Nebraska at Kearney. And Clio is a web-based mapping program. It's based on Google Maps, and it provides the ability to identify historic sites and develop tours. And Marshall University is where this program was born, and then is supported by substantial interest from other institutions across the country. And it is of the three programs, it is as you'll see, the most straightforward type of interface, and is very, very easy to use, even for someone who, again, this is not something that you need a PhD in computer science. The use of Google Maps makes it very easy, and the entries are expandable. And so, as we'll see again in the samples soon, that what you do is you use the Google Maps feature to create entries for historic sites. And other types of points of interest. And so if you have the location of historical markers or statues or places where, you know, a specific event were to have happened, you put a marker down, and then you create an entry around that marker. And then individuals are able to, based on that location, search for and find this particular site. And then in the entry, you can add images, audio, and links to primary sources, so that you know, an individual with this program on their phone could go to a you know, a historic home, and you could have historic images. You could have images of those who lived in the home before. If you have an oral history, if you had a historic site, you could provide primary sources about the event or the figure that is being described at the historic site. If you had oral histories, again, depending on the age of the material, you could incorporate those, so that you're at a site and you can hear, you know, the participants or the witnesses. And it's really useful, you know, again, for making spaces accessible with additional material for people. And once you have created these different historic sites, these different points within the program, you can connect them into both walking and driving tours. And these, there is no restriction on the scale or the size of what these tours could be. You could just do a neighborhood-based tour, which we're going to take a look at an example of. You know, if you have materials, for example, from, you know, a World War II soldier, you could identify, you know, local sites as well as places in the European or Pacific theater that they were at. If someone wanted to make such a grand tour, it really is up to you. And they have expanded the possibilities of Clio now due to COVID to also develop virtual museum tours. There now is an internal option, for facilities that are closed, for facilities that have limited user access. Again, during the pandemic, that you can create a tour within your museum in Google Maps. And so there's an option where you can, identify each gallery, provide photos, provide information. So those individuals, they can park their car, they can walk, they can sit, out front and still go through the museum, if you will, and see what is available. And then when things get better, come back. And the benefit of Clio 2 is that it is built on an institutional model, that you get an institutional account for your site or for your classroom. And you are then able to kind of maintain the historical accuracy of these informations. You're able to kind of supervise the different sites or markers that are under your direction, and you're able to kind of have and allow access to student groups or to other staff members to kind of develop these different types of tours. And so to kind of take you through that, we are now going to change the window real quick for everybody. We are going to look at a series of Clio. So this is what the Clio interface looks like. And so this is the Clio entry for the train depot here at the Buffalo County Historical Society in Kearney. And so the way that this interface works is each site is identified to a point on Google, as you can see here on the left. And so you see the number 2, and you're able to zoom in, and it brings you to the location. You're able to move this, and you can tag it based on if you have an actual street address, as you do with Google, or if you have the geographic coordinates, if it's something that doesn't have necessarily a specific address, or if it's something that isn't directly located on a road. And then depending on, and there is this option, if you have a Google Street View, as you can see then here on the right, you're actually physically able to see the building, and you're able to move. And this option is removable if you don't have the Google Street View option, but you can then also upload your own images. And so with the mapping feature, there's an option where you can click on the directions, so it can bring people to the specific site. There is this overview, kind of just brief summation of what exactly you're looking at, and there is the text to speech audio option. So again, so if you're having a driving tour, it is going to be able to tell you, and also for accessibility purposes, read the text of this site to you. And then this continues. You go down to the rest of the entry. You're able to upload images of the specific site. So you can put, again, historic images. You can put images of other individuals, primary sources, other types of documentation. And then there's a larger body where you can expand that story, where you can put the information that they would normally receive at the site, or you can expand upon what is at the historical marker. You can expand and talk about the history of the building, talk about the history of the site, what have you. And there's also then the option, again, to continue the shows about the material that is able to be put into this to, again, expand kind of engagement is both there's a citation for students who are doing projects might want to cite this, but as well as a place to put primary sources or other type of source material. So you can then direct people to publications from your institutions, things that have drawn on your collections, or point them to places that they can get more information and really sink into the space. And then obviously you can link to the website. There's a comment section. So if it's a particular site, you can be soliciting further information from those who are aware of the site, those who have additional information to share. And as you can see also on the right, where you have the options to share the social media, you also have then descriptions of the hours of the museum, contact information, and then the tag function, so that then it links to other sites, other similar spaces. So someone who is really interested in, railroads and transportation is going to be able to find all of, the preserved steam locomotives in the state of Nebraska if they have entries like this. And what BCHS has done is they've actually made a separate site or a separate entry for every one of the buildings on site. So this is part of the facilitation of a virtual tour. So you don't actually have to go to the grounds of Trails and Rails to be able to see, every single object that they have on display outside. Now, if you, and again, and this just kind of taking you through those entries. Now, is an example of the tour function, and this was made by one of our students here, Laura Rose, who works for the Game and Parks Commission. She developed a walking tour of the Fort Kearney State Historic Site, and so you can see here on the map what she has been able to create is points of interest throughout the park. So someone who is out visiting the park, maybe they're here for crane season, maybe they are interested in the history of the Oregon Trail, are able to walk across the site and see, beginning at the welcome sign, there is an explanation. There's maps of the site, there are photographs, and she also has then information about the site itself, the history of the site, that is culled from Ray Wilson, which is the book on Fort Kearney. And then is able to go through this tour, as you can see here. So you can go from one site to the next. Okay, so then you go to the visitor center, and there are images both of Google Street View and you can adjust the Street View so it shows you the starting point. So this is actually looking from behind the visitor center. The visitor center. Okay, and then images of the exhibits within inside the museum. The entrance to the museum, and further explanation of the site. And you can also incorporate audio and video. And so if you have, a short documentary film that plays, or if you have, an interview that you want to highlight about a specific site, you can also put that data in here. And this still, again, it takes you through the tour, takes you through the site, provides all of this information, and you're able to navigate. So someone who has a phone, is out there at the park, can go, and when they're in the stockade, right, they can get additional information that augments what's on display and is available through the Clio app. And it doesn't necessarily just have to be a historic site. It could also be a thematic tour. And so these are tours, this Shaping Kearney's Landscape, and then the Women in Business. These were two women's history tours that were developed in our program last year in the fall, based around women's history, looking at key women within the Kearney community who are influential for a variety of different reasons, and different sites that kind of speak to that. And so beginning with the William of the Frank House and Grothin Sanatorium, now the GW Frank Museum. And again, talking about the history of this space, providing images, providing additional resources, links to the website, and taking you through this. So it doesn't necessarily have to even be tied to one specific site. You can do a thematic-based tour. You can do, any number of different types of tours, and looking at, and identifying different things in your community that you really want to highlight. And the other wonderful thing about this is it doesn't necessarily, again, thinking about the issue of connectivity and issues of rural broadband. If you were to build a tour like this and you're in a space that has limited access, you can also create PDF maps of these tours, of these site entries. So, to kind of warn folks or make known to them that if your cell phone might not work in this area, but here is a printable version. Here's a sheet of paper that either they can make themselves or you can have available to them, and still go on one of these tours. So this provides, again, this is a fairly straightforward program that shows the opportunities and the resources of web-based, and it's completely free. It doesn't require you to download anything. It's hosted elsewhere, and so is the swiftest way to add digital outreach to any historic site or any museum is using Clio. Which then brings us to the next program, Omeka, which is a program that was developed by the Roy Rosenweg Center for History and New Media at George Mason, which is it's just the premier digital history institute in the United States. And many of the best kinds of programs and resources, and really the entire field of digital history is due to this institute and this center. In Omeka, there are different versions, and we're going to kind of look at just the basic Omeka Classic and Omeka.net, which is Omeka is an exhibition and collection program modeled on the kind of organizational structure of archives. And so you build a collection of material within the Omeka site, and then you create exhibits out of them. And there are places where you are then able to enter the metadata, the information about the object, the artifact, the work of art, the audio, the video, what have you, for use by scholars and visitors and things. And there are different versions of the Omeka platform that have now evolved over the years that fit different types of institutional need. So the most advanced form and the most recent form is Omeka S, which is a version of the Omeka website where there is only a single installation, but it is able to be operated at multiple instances. So this would be for a large institution, a large museum, because Omeka also has features that it can run on touchscreens. So you could have, if you have iPads or some sort of touchscreen, in your exhibit spaces, you would only have one installation, but individuals would be able to access, at each of these pads and look at additional information about the collection or things that didn't make it into the exhibit, or help contextualize the information there. The standard version is Omeka Classic, which is the straightforward. You need one installation, per usage, and is the most common form for just an average sized museum. Now, for a museum that doesn't have the server space or the kind of institutional support for Omeka S or Omeka Classic, which both require you to download the software, there is the Omeka.net version, which is web-based and it is hosted on Omeka servers. This is for institutions of average size, for historical societies, for small museums that have materials that they want to share but don't want to invest in additional server space, any server space, don't want to have to kind of navigate those tech components of it. And the new features that Omeka has been rolling out as of late are really kind of expanding to support specific types of museum operations. And so Omeka Everywhere, which is their kind of new materials, are the availability to install Omeka on museum tablets, iPads, and touch tables. And so you are able then to integrate the Omeka program, within the museum on a variety of different kind of interface surfaces. And part of the Omeka Everywhere programming is a function called Heist. So if you have a tablet or a table-sized touchscreen where you can interact with different digital materials within your museum, and you're running Omeka Everywhere on it, patrons are able to transfer material out of Omeka onto their phone. So if there's like a photograph or a letter that they really thought was really cool, maybe it's from a grandparent or related to something interesting that they have, they can bring it onto their phone and take the museum with them. With all of the versions of Omeka, there are mobile versions. It is optimized for mobile use. And so, again, thinking about accessibility and kind of questions of internet access, folks who you don't need, a series of touchscreens, you don't need a home computer, you can operate this on your computer, on your phone. Now, with Omeka, Clio is entirely free, and Omeka does have trial versions, but there are Omeka is a pay. There are yearly subscription fees, depending on the type of Omeka installation that you would like, the scale, how much storage, how many installations, and really to kind of fit your institutional needs. And so that is something to also consider as part of the long-term investment. Are you willing to pay, a yearly fee for this type of programming, or would you rather have, a free service. But it is, Omeka is, as most programs are, it is open source. So there are folks who are developing plugins and other resources all the time. And so now we're going to look at a couple of different types of Omeka installations. So this is kind of what an Omeka installation, a very simple, straightforward Omeka installation would look like. And so here you have your splash page where you're kind of showing the overview of the site and kind of explaining what it is. And then you have it's structured into exhibits, collections, and items. And so this is a project that was developed in conjunction with a documentary, which then later appeared on NET, about World War II Kearney. And so this was using resources both from the Buffalo County Historical Society, as well as objects from within the community, and then from the university archives as well. Because one of the benefits of Omeka, as you're going to see, is it provides for what's called digital reunification. So you can bring in materials, again, due to the collaborative nature of digital history. You know, if you have half of a collection and another nearby institution, or an institution some distance away has the other half of the collection, you know, half of someone's correspondence, half of a diary, or paintings that, you know, should be together, you know, you can work out an arrangement to bring them back together digitally. And so to take you kind of into the specifics of it, there's a couple of different aspects. This is we're going to look at a digital history project from the University of Illinois, which is emphasizing the community aspects of what you're able to do. And so this is a History Harvest hosted site. If you're not familiar with History Harvest, it's a program developed at the University of Nebraska at Lincoln. It's like Antiques Roadshow, but you don't actually get your stuff appraised. You just get some historians and students to look at it. They digitize it, and they put it into, generally they put it into an Omeka site, and make available, you know, your family treasures to a wider audience. And then also there's generally a component as part of it, educating and offering classes on like historic preservation and things, so that your you know, family heirlooms don't turn to dust. And so with this, it's a very straightforward explaining what this project is, and then has the collections. So you click on the collection page, and you see the different material that is within this site. And so, for example, here we see this campaign, and Omeka runs on Dublin core standards for the metadata. So you're able to put the information about what is within the collection, who had it, all of the type of information that you would be putting into you know, your catalog, or your archive space, or whatever you're using to manage your collection. And then you're able to actually see the materials themselves. And so here, you know, we have a text document, a newsletter that has been digitized explaining what it is, who gave it to you, you know, any sort of rights issues, the format, you know, providing all this information. And from this, then you're able to build exhibits out. So this Omeka project has not built the exhibits yet. This is just purely collections. And so if you're an institution that just wants to make things accessible, just and it doesn't have to be, you know, the entirety of your archive, but, you know, things that you really want, you know, folks to see or share, or are frequently requested from genealogists or others, this is a way that you can do it. Now, building that out then, this is the University of Richmond Race and Racism Project, which is a much more expansive Omeka installation. They are using all of the features that are available. So you have this splash page that you arrive at the site, and they both show you, you know, materials that have been recently added to the collection. They have featured collections, and they have exhibits. They have incorporated documentaries. They've incorporated oral histories. And so, you know, at the very basic level, you can see all of the materials. And so you have 140 pages of materials that have been loaded into this site. So, you know, explaining, and this is organized by date added, so the most recently. So you can provide, again, the metadata descriptive information, and then a picture of, you know, the image that is being included. You can, again, they haven't done, there's an option to do kind of keyword searching and linking different materials together by both tag and by subject. And so you can see these are the different types of materials that are included in this collection. There's a function that you can add blogs. So you can have further textual information analysis of the material that is within the collection. So you can build this sort of interface. You can incorporate your social media presence. As you can see, their tweets are on the right, and share this. This is a place where you can put your newsletter. You can put your different aspects of the site. There are oral histories that are also a component of this. And so with Omeka, it's not restricted by file type, or you don't just have to put text. You don't just have to put physical objects. You can put audio. You can put video. They also have a documentary that is part of their project. And additional kind of resources linking of relation to the site. So you really can build, an online museum with the Omeka installation, and really highlight, again, different things in your collection. You can build different exhibits. As you can see here, they have an exhibit all on Title IX. Again, importing material from the collection, and then kind of takes you through the different parts of this exhibit, again, highlighting different types of material. So this is a way, again, thinking in this age of COVID, how you can highlight things. And it's also a way, you can make exhibits that would be too small for a physical exhibit, or maybe you're doing something timely with an anniversary or a centennial or something, that you can build these types of installations. And so Omeka is a really good program, and has a strong support network that the Omeka team is very easy to work with, and very helpful in kind of doing anything that you need them to do. Now, the final program that we're going to talk about today is Scalar, and this is a different type of digital history program. The other two were focused on historic sites and exhibit building, and kind of the straightforward functions of a historic institution, a museum. Now, Scalar is another open source platform, but it is a publishing platform that was created at the University of Southern California at USC. And what Scalar does is aims to build digital books, and it could be a book of any size, and it doesn't have to be book is just the basic, straightforward kind of descriptor for what they do. You can also build museum exhibits out of this. And so the uses of this for a historic institution is, again, it's another way to highlight collections, to make things accessible, and particularly objects. It's really good with text. So if you have a correspondence collection, if you have an unpublished memoir, if you have, the papers of a local poet, or author, or something, this is a really useful resource and technology to do that. And the way that it works with Scalar is it integrates material that is hosted elsewhere. So the material has to be put into generally like archive.org, Internet Archives, or hosted elsewhere, and is then integrated into the Scalar platform. But once it does that, you're able to annotate the material. So if you have a photograph, from a community event, or from or a painting or something, you can then annotate it digitally. And so you can identify the figures within it. You can highlight different things that, a casual observer might not notice, or somebody who doesn't have an art history degree would kind of understand, and really make the artifact, you can make it more interactive than it would be if it were just sitting in the wall or sitting in an archive box. And it offers the opportunity, again, to highlight particular types of collections. So again, if you have unpublished memoirs, the letters of a soldier, the oral histories or things, this is really kind of a good opportunity to use this. And so it is also, like the others, optimized for mobile use. And the examples of Scalar projects that we're going to look at are a mix of both museum exhibits and then critical digital editions of primary sources, as we're going to see. And so the editions that we're going to start with, because these are the ones that I am most familiar with, are critical editions of primary source material that were produced as part of the Source Lab initiative at the University of Illinois, where I was a managing editor for a long time on this project. And what these are student essays, student projects built around primary sources. And so in this case, this is a letter from Sir John Franklin, For those of you who aren't familiar with your Victorian Canadian history, this is an Arctic expedition that went looking for the Northwest Passage in the 1840s and didn't come back. And so this is one of the last letters that was sent from the expedition. It was sent on a mail ship back from Greenland before they were lost forever. And so this is a critical edition of that. It is a very tightly kind of focused examination of this singular document from the Rare Books and Manuscript Collection at the University of Illinois. And so there's an overview of the expedition. And then the way that Scalar works is it navigates you through the book, as if you will. So you're turning the page, and then you have, here is the physical letter itself. You can look at the document, you can interact with it, and then below is a full transcription with annotations. And so you're able to hold over, and the students have provided information, on something that's hard to read, or the context for those who aren't familiar with, the individuals mentioned, different challenges to the document, and again, making it much more accessible. There's a kind of summation of a history of the document itself. How did this letter from Greenland, survive? How did it end up at the University of Illinois? And then kind of an explanation of the actual process of how the edition was created. So, and then finally, portion to cite. And this isn't just for like a single letter. This is another edition. And this shows the collaborative nature. This was a newsreel from the Depression that was provided by an archivist at Illinois Wesleyan. And so Scalar is also able to integrate visual material. So if you have, a family film, film from a football game, film from something that you really want to, look at, it provides this overview of this short newsreel clipping, which is about the process in the Great Depression, about how this university in Illinois, you could pay your tuition with farm goods. And so the students are lined up with different things, paying for classes. I won't make you watch it. Just know that you can you can take a music class for if you have songbirds to give up. And then it explains the document. Is able to integrate additional material, additional source material, explaining the context, why this program was in place, what is the entire history of even the recording of the film, and again, providing this kind of in-depth knowledge about a single artifact from a collection, augmented with additional material. So going far more in depth than a museum caption could even provide, with additional citations. And again, the history of the edition itself. And it can be of anything of any scale. So this is, again, of particular interest for those who are in county historical societies. This is a collection from a county historical society in Illinois, which had the collection of Civil War correspondence. It's two sisters who just about everybody in the town who's serving in the Union is trying to court them, and so it's a couple hundred letters. Actually, it's a very enormous collection written to just this small family in Southern Illinois. And so they have built, again, this explanation of the project, but then they have multiple letters that you can see, where they have actually provided. Oh, that's embarrassing. That my apologies. The link didn't work. They have all of the letters from this collection, and so you can go to this index and you can click on something, and it will take you to a particular letter relevant to the material, the tag that was, and they've provided the entire transcription, also with annotations. So again, you can make, it doesn't just have to be a single letter. You can do an entire letter collection in this kind of format. And then there's also the option, folks can download it and take it with them. So very useful, for collections that genealogists are interested, or what have you. You can also do exhibition building with an exhibit building with the Scalar program. So this is a project from Stanford that wanted to highlight the Egyptian artifacts in its archaeological collection. And so they have the kind of explanation of how they ended up getting a bunch of Egyptian artifacts. They have used the slider interface to kind of show a different view of the artifact. You can do something similar if you have maps, or old photos of a building, and then a new photo if you've got them lined up correctly with the interface. And so you go to the first page, and they have the different types of material. And because of the way that Scalar works is of the tags, as you click, you can look at, these are the mixed media materials, these are the stone materials. And so this is the organizational structure of the exhibit. So you can just go through it either this way, follow the tags, or you can go organize it this way, and it'll show you all the stone artifacts. Or, if you don't want to follow this navigation scheme, if you don't want to follow the navigation scheme, you can go directly to the section on people, and it'll show you the history of the different Egyptologists who were involved in this exhibit, creating the artifacts, different things. Similarly, this is a project from USC itself, which includes it's a literary collection from Lawrence Lipton, who is a beat poet, and they've included his oral histories and recordings from his collection. And so explaining the collection, having the interface with the actual audio, and again, incorporating other types of images, other types of material. And so you have this online exhibit that reads like a book. And because of the annotation features, you're able to see the footnotes for all the material. You're able to see the different types of information, about the object, all the metadata. So really, again, increasing accessibility, making these types of collections, bringing them out of their archival boxes and making them much more accessible. So that then kind of those conclude my kind of overview of those programs, and just to kind of as a practicing digital historian and someone who works with these programs, digital history can be daunting if you think you don't have the skills. You don't, to reiterate, you don't need a PhD in computer science to do this. You don't need to know a coding language to do this. There are resources to make the digital realm accessible, to integrate your institutions, to integrate your collections. Part of it is just, you got to get your feet wet. You just kind of got to jump in, which is why I began with the Clio program. It is very straightforward. The interface is relatively easy to navigate, but you can make it what you will. And with that, though, is to understand that digital history at its best is a collaborative endeavor. That no, and it's the same with a museum. That it is done with a staff where everybody is bringing a different skill set. All of these programs have some sort of classroom or institutional programming built into them, so that you can have an entire class that is devoted. You could be organizing events, kind of like Wikipedia editathons, where you're having a group of community members who are building up the Clio presence of your community or of your institution. There are the options to incorporate classroom teaching, which is why I wanted to show you a lot of these projects are built out of universities. They're built out of classrooms. They're built out of different things that are happening on those spaces, and are there are teachers who are interested in doing this with their students. So in your communities, there are certainly social studies teachers. There are, if you are near a college or university, there are folks who would like to do this type of collaboration, and that's really what makes these. As with collections, someone always has a story to tell. Someone always has something to add, and you never know what's in someone's attic or what's in someone's basement. Particularly around here. And there are folks, myself included, there are digital humanists more broadly than even digital history. There are folks in literature departments, English departments, modern language departments, who are doing this type of work. So, if you're feeling nervous, if you're feeling scared, reach out to the folks at those institutions in the history departments. The University of Nebraska at Lincoln has the digital Center for Digital has Center for Digital History and Resources. They have the big DH program in the state, but here at UNK with our public history program and our digital history work, we have folks who do that kind of work. UNO also has folks as well. And ultimately, doing this kind of work, engaging with this type of program, incorporating these things, because they can really augment existing collections, new exhibits, new possibilities. As we understand in this age of COVID, making your museum, your institution relevant when folks can't come through the door, or they can't come through the door in the numbers that they used to. Having a digital presence, having these types of possibilities is all the more important. Just to reaching folks, to connecting folks, and giving them a sense of normalcy, that you are there, you have stories to tell, and you are there for them. And so with that, that's it for kind of my overview of these programs. If anyone has questions, which I hope there are, I am happy to answer. And then feel free to shoot me an email or call me on my office phone. I don't believe Micah mentioned this, but I am the professor of Nebraska history at UNK. So particularly those working in local museums and local repositories, that is what I'm here for. So if you have questions, or if you have questions about hobos and want to talk about my research, I am available.
We have one question from Brock Anderson. It says, Dr. Ty, is there a way to monitor how many people have used the Clio app?
Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you, Brock. Yeah, you can use, the easiest way would be to use if you have a Google Analytics platform or account, you can put the website in, you can put your specific entries for BCHS, and then you would be able to tell, what the engagement was. I believe on the Clio site itself, they do have an interface where it will give you kind of the, let me double check. It has the interface, the history for edits. I don't believe it has the site visit numbers, but you can, Google Analytics would probably be the most straightforward way to do that.
I guess for me personally, it's less of a question, more of a comment. Is that I would say is a bit of advice for everybody is, don't overestimate the difficulty, because it is really easy. And then don't overestimate the cost, because a lot of the times these are either free to your institution as a nonprofit historical site, or severely discounted. And then they also easily integrate with what you already have as a website for your business, or for for your museum and that. So it just takes a little bit of time, but not everything in our vocation does. So and Professor Ty here is a great person to get in contact with UNK's history department, because even outside of just digital history questions, just getting a hold of student help and things like that, he's a great person to get a hold of. With right now we have them digitizing lots of, I forget what it was, cassette tapes and stuff like that.
Yep, or 135 oral histories from Micah's facility. Which we're working on, and we're also collaborating with Game and Parks to work at the Fort Kearney State Historic Park. So we're always happy and helpful. COVID has kind of been a challenge to bring students, to get student labor, but we're always happy to help, no matter where you are in the state, or what your institutional aims or mission are.
Yeah, we have about 5 minutes until the next presentation. Is there anybody with any other questions over the different programs that Professor Ty has shown us, or just issues that you have in your own museum with integrating projects like this? Otherwise, I am not sure who takes over as the next host.
So we'll be having a 15-minute break, and then at 2:15 we'll be starting back up with fostering historical connections and creating meaningful education and interpretive programming with Katie Carr and Amber Kirkdale. And Sydney will be the proctor.
All right. Professor Ty, thank you so much. We definitely appreciate your program. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Question. Brock had another question.
Yeah.
Are any of these programs compatible to build a digital collection for archives besides Omeka?
No. Scalar, you can incorporate like a lot of stuff, but it wouldn't give you the same functionality as Omeka, which is then kind of the drawback of Omeka, because you do have to pay, depending on the size and the scale and how much stuff you have, a yearly subscription fee. Yeah.
All right, thank you. And we'll be back in 15 minutes at 2:15.